and scores! Great move by Davies. Well, this would be something. Oh! Ausgezeichnet! Brian White chips. It'll make it!
Welcome back to another episode of Caps Cast presented by Whitecaps Fan TV. My name is Matt, and as always, I am joined by my co-host Damien with me.
Hey everyone, how you doing?
All right, so I don't know how you want to do this because I think this is the most we'll probably sit here and kind of own all of our bad callouts. We had a very, very, very poor week.
Yeah. You can't even call it poor, really. It was the worst possible outcome. Poor would have been a loss and a draw. This was diabolical. So bad on every level.
A masterclass in disaster.
Yeah, honestly, probably the two teams that we should have been and needed to beat to even give ourselves a chance of finishing in that top four, we lost them both. The Seattle game, I suppose, let's start with that one. And honestly, I don't even want to touch on this for that long because I think it might be one of the worst performances from the Caps that I have seen in quite a while.
I was going to say the same thing. And to preface this game is it completely mathematically eliminated us from the Cascadia Cup all in one go.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump into this. So basically, let's preface this whole breakdown with this. Is me and you put out a TikTok clip from our podcast last week saying, in order for us to be in the top four, we need to get 7 points in the last 4 games. That's kind of what we assumed. And we were very confident. I think this is probably the most confident we've been. I think also the Whitecaps have given us every single reason to be confident this season.
Yeah, and I feel coming towards the end of the season here, we've just signed Stuart Armstrong, obviously, who, in the brief cameos that he's actually played for us, he's looked very good. So coming towards the last 4 games of the season against realistically big opposition. Look at the teams that we're playing. These are all teams fighting for the same spots as us. These are big games. You'd think that having our best players for these big games would have done all right. Yeah.
Okay, so let's break this down now. So we have a Wednesday night game against Seattle. Quick thing too is because I had to rewatch this in order to prep for this discussion. They showed the Sounders fans, and one of them had a banner that said "No weekday derbies," which is perfect. I think that's nail on. So Wednesday night game, BC Place is not as full as it should have been. It's always quite ironic because the Whitecaps media team is very quick to post the attendance when it's good. I've been scouring for this attendance, and it's not on any of our sites that we use to kind of pick out our stats, which have the most obscure stats that we can pull from, but for some reason the attendance is missing.
Yeah, I was just looking there. If I can find it, I can't.
No,
see it on there, I don't think.
It's nowhere to be found. Okay, so Vanny doesn't change from his system now. Why would he? Even though there's probably argument that a change-up is needed, but I think you've doubled down too long to start changing tactics.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that he's got his system. It has worked for the majority of the season.
Don't change now.
If I were in his shoes, I don't think I'd change it either.
Yeah. Okay, so for the Seattle game, we were missing quite a few due to injury. So Stuart Armstrong was out, Ryan Gauld was out, Ali Ahmed was all out. Um, and that leaves us with a very, I think, standard 11 that we're used to seeing now, with Brian White and Fafa up top. The rest is pretty much standard. There's no real surprises. He sticks with his back three of Laborda, Blackman, and Veselinovic. And I think that's something interesting that you've said offline, is that we think he has a preferred back three now.
Yeah, I think he does. It's certainly looking that way. Obviously, Veselinovic is like the mainstay. It's on like it seems like he does, but he rotates so much. It's honestly quite shocking when you look at it, because I was thinking after maybe a few games back that his ideal back three was Laborda, Veselinovic, and Utvik. And now he has been playing Blackman a lot. I like Blackman, I'll be honest. I think he's very good. The only question is, who do you drop in that situation? Like, who even does Vanny drop in that situation? I don't think he knows.
No, he doesn't. And I mean, it really is a toss up. I really like Blackman. I thought he's always been one of our best center backs. Him and Veselinovic, I feel, have always had that sort of like chemistry, where they can kind of play off each other. Blackman loves to go on an adventure, specifically on corners. Him and Veselinovic both kind of fly up for those, and they kind of play off each other in terms of like tracking back. I've noticed that, at least. So we've prefaced it. Let's get into it. This is the worst game we've seen in quite some time.
Yeah, nothing really went right from the kickoff until the final whistle. Like there was no cohesion in the team. I really feel like we were missing Ryan Gauld in that match. Like, we normally have a spark about our attack where we look good, we look threatening, we look dangerous. Without him on the pitch there, I really thought the attack looked quite blunt. Yeah, I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, but yeah, I think that the attack without Ryan Gauld on the pitch at the moment looks very, very almost, just like a lack of creativity.
It's something we've said from the beginning of the season, is that we have no creativity in the midfield without Ryan Gauld. We've said, is that why Stuart Armstrong's brought in? But basically, it just seemed like get the ball out wide and let Sam Adekugbe run with it, or let Berhalter run with it, and whip it in and hope somebody gets on the end. It just seemed like that level of play that we saw with like Dos Santos and like honestly like Carl Robinson ball is just get up the left and the right, try and break him out wide, and then see if somebody's on the end to finish it. And I'm not gonna bash Berhalter's crossing abilities, because he is quite good. Sam Adekugbe, I don't know what's going on. I've been singing his praises all season, and like kind of now I'm siding with you that like I don't know how much longer his time is in Vancouver. He just seems so uninterested. I don't know if it's injuries, knocks, if he's come back from Europe and saying like mentally like is this a step back for him? You know?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that he honestly over the last two games, I think he has been dire. Yeah. I don't really know how else to describe it. It's just been brutal actually watching him play. He's had quite a few opportunities to get into the box. His final pass has been lacking. He's had a few good opportunities, like actually scoring and getting like a goal. His shot accuracy has been down. I really don't know what is going on there, because I remember when we actually signed him and we were both so excited about it, thinking
Right?
this is like European talent coming from a team that's been in the Champions League, a regular in the Canadian national team. I genuinely thought we were getting not exactly a superstar, but
A
like
spark.
maybe, yeah, like a top 10 in his position in the league sort of thing. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But he's not been there.
And like, I don't
Like,
know
ever.
if it's injuries, if it's, you know, like one of the biggest things is the congestion of games due to the League's Cup, which I think if we kind of broke it down in terms of statistics wise, I don't think it is a congestion, but when you're not fit, you're injury prone, and now he's being overly relied on because the MLS schedule is basically forcing the Whitecaps to overplay him, maybe through an injury.
Mm,
Just because these international breaks are really killing us. I know every team's going through it, and you know every team has internationals. They're losing out players, but it's like we're losing 5 to 6 from our 11 each time,
yeah.
which it's frustrating. I saw there was like a post game interview with Ryan Gauld who was saying it's very interesting the way the MLS schedule is through an international break, but it is what it is essentially. So there's frustration there. So I think one point I do want to make about this game, and this kind of goes for both games, like into the Minnesota game, is that I genuinely didn't know Cubas was on the field until he was subbed off. That was like
Oh,
another takeaway that I had, at least.
yeah, no, you're completely right there. Like, his performances, I honestly feel, since coming back from the internationals there, with Paraguay, I think has been, yeah, just anonymous. Like, I don't understand how our designated player, somebody that I have always said is one of the better players in his position in the
Totally.
entire league, has come back from his internationals and just be, yeah, like you said, being invisible.
Like, I know he picked up an injury during the Copa America. But I'm like, is that it? Is this just injuries going through the team and Vanny really has no choice but to play through it, you know?
I really don't know, because so what? Like, if you look at, so from the beginning of September here, if we look at the results from the beginning of September, just the league, not including the Canadian Championship, we've played, I think it's 7 games, and I think we've won 1. If you look at the league last year, after September, we played 11 games, including 2 playoff games against LA. At the 11, we won 2 of the 11 after September. So, is it more of a physical thing where the players are genuinely burnt out by September? Or is it a mental thing where after almost securing the playoffs and securing even the CONCACAF Champions League, because they've secured CONCACAF by winning the Canadian Cup.
Yeah.
So is it like, are the players switching off and just thinking, we've got into the Champions League? Maybe they, and it's shitty to say, maybe they know that we're not going to win the MLS Cup. So they're thinking, what does it matter? The quicker we get out of the playoffs, the quicker we get on holiday.
I think that's a really good point about the Canadian Championship because how do I say this without sounding like I don't support the club? The objective every year seems to be the Canadian Championship. right? To be kings of the North, essentially. I get it. It's a big deal, and it secures us the Champions League football for next year, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you take that point that you just said about securing it, look at last year's League Cup run when Vanny kind of came out and said, "Oh, we've locked up the Canadian Championship, so we get Champions League. This is an opportunity for me to try new things in the League's Cup," right?
Yeah.
And then obviously we fizzle out in the playoffs. But is the season a success in the management's eyes because we did secure Champions League football? So now let's fast forward to this year. Basically, I feel like you've made a really good point just kind of looking at all of the advertising that we've seen. Everything marketing from, hey, look at our new jersey, to essentially Adekube holding 3 fingers up with the golden ball.
Yeah.
Is the club pushing the Canadian Championship as a success over the MLS Cup because it might not be attainable?
I think so, yeah. It's the same way a club in the Premier League, let's say a West Ham, are going to focus mainly on the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, whatever it is, the EFL Cup.
Yeah.
Because they have no chance of winning the Premier League, right? Even at the moment, like, look at our own clubs like Chelsea United. If you looked at both of those, they'd be probably more focused on winning an FA Cup and the EFL Cup over the league because they're not going to win the league. So you focus and you put the shiny objects in front of your fans and say, this is what we're going to win and this is what we're going for.
No, that's a great point. And like top 4 in the Premier League in the sense of like getting Champions League football. If you win the FA Cup, you get into Europa. So it's like, hey, we're going to have European football, right? We might not win the league, but hey, we won the Canadian Championship.
Exactly. Yeah.
I honestly think that's nail on the head of it. Like with that, I think you hit the head of the nail in one go with that.
Thank you. Yeah. That wasn't written down either. That was just straight out of my head.
There's no pre-planning on our part. No, I think it is true. Is that like all of the advertisements this year, in terms of marketing, have been with the Voyageurs Cup. Hey, 50th season. You know, what's our club crest on that kit that we coincidentally aren't wearing? Is the golden ball with the maple leaf, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there was a big emphasis this year on the Canadian Cup over
massive
the
one.
Over the MLS League.
Massive one. Like I think you putting that out there is essentially it. It's the marketing plan was, hey, we're the kings of the North. We can't compete. And like, okay, I don't want this to seem like I'm like not supporting the club because 2 weeks ago genuinely thought we were going to be top 4 and make a run in the MLS Cup.
Agreed, yeah.
It just seems like the foot's been taken off the gas. And it's like, hey, did we achieve what we set out to do? And now the rest is just cherry on top. That's kind of what I'm getting from the club.
Yeah, that's a feeling that I'm getting as well. And it's honestly kind of shit.
Yeah.
Sorry, but it is like we appreciate the fact that the club and the players and Vanny have won the Canadian Championship. We really do as fans. But the MLS title, even just being the best team in the West, if you don't want to win the MLS title, being the best team in the West alone would be a massive achievement for the club. Like, we should be striving for that at minimum.
I also think too, like Seattle and Portland LA, both LAs are in our division, obviously, is that we want to be contending with them to say, hey, we're not only the kings of the North, as the TIFO was putting it, but we're also the kings of the Pacific Northwest. We're the kings of the
the
Pacific.
best in the West, right?
Best in the West. And yeah, like you said, I'm appreciative of the Canadian Championship. I don't think that is a feat that we are undermining because, hey, we get Champions League football next year. You know, I love the Champions League football for CONCACAF. I think it's great. Every game we've gone to has been bang on. It's an opportunity for us to play other clubs, get different looks at things, right, and kind of push our Whitecaps agenda. But yeah, I want to compete further.
Yeah,
You know?
no, I agree with that.
Yeah, so okay. So let's kind of like reel it back in on track here. And I think we can kind of just skip this so we dropped 3-0 to Seattle. Essentially.
Yeah.
Let's set up this game here. So Fafa's on a red. He's suspended. And then I think there was talks too that he was also kind of sick. So he wasn't training. And then so this is very interesting because this game, when we saw the lineups, you looked at me and said, this is the strongest 11 I've ever seen Vanny play.
Honestly, like before we started the podcast tonight, I went through and just jotted down the 11 again on paper. And even just seeing it on paper, I'm looking at it thinking, how did they do nothing? It's not even a case of how did we lose the match. It's how did they do absolutely nothing for the entire 90 minutes? It was pathetic, really, like to think how they played in that game. And I just want to add, for both these games, especially the Minnesota game, I think the refereeing was absolutely atrocious in both games. So biased towards the American team. And I don't know if that is something to do with maybe looking at it from like a viewership thing. If the American teams finish higher, they get the home legs. Is it going to mean that more people in the States tune in?
Yeah.
And I hate to say that because I don't want to like say that the referees are bent, but when like there was a instance in that game there, the Minnesota game, where Raposo's been on the pitch for maybe 10 minutes, and he got absolutely hammered off the defender, like aggressively hammered, and somehow they got the free kick.
Yeah.
And it was that moment, I remember, like, we're sat in the stands, and I remember looking at the game thinking, I don't know if I can actually watch more of this because of how bad the referee has been. And I don't let myself get worked up like that, but I don't know, the performance from the referee and the officials was just shocking. The worst I've ever seen.
Now, I'm going to contradict everything I just said, is that Vanny gets up in the face of the refs after the game. So I guess I want to rephrase everything I just said in the sense that I feel the club, like the management, upper level, has pushed the Canadian Championship, and Vanny is still trying to fight it onwards. So I think the overall thing, because he gets on the hot mic after the game and says this is the worst refereeing since the LA game last year. He refrains a little bit just because, I mean, last thing we need is Vanny to get suspended by the MLS for accosting again. So I did appreciate that because that was absolutely dreadful reffing. The penalty to Laborda, I don't know. I see it. Why is he kicking out?
Yeah, it's one of those. If it happens to your team, you are going to scream and shout for it to be a penalty. If you are the team that are conceding the penalty, then you're screaming, no, it's not
dreadful.
a penalty.
This
Not
is
enough in it.
terrible.
Yeah, that was a brutal one, really. Like, it was, yeah, it shouldn't have been kicking out. Yeah, you can't throw your leg out like that. It
Especially
just,
in the box.
Yeah, it just looks bad. Like, it just looks, unfortunate, really. But even that, like, I was looking on the stats there, and it's okay saying, yeah, Laborda conceded this penalty and all this, but if you look at the other end of the pitch, we finished with an XG, and I hate XG. I hate XG. I hate the XA or whatever it's called for the expected assist.
Expected saves, like.
But just for the sake of this podcast, like, we finished with a 0.5 XG at home to one of our like closest competitors. That is pathetic.
Not even to our closest competitors, because that would be like saying, "Oh, we're in terms of talent, we're equal with Minnesota," which I think we're miles ahead. But where we are in the standings, this is such an unforgivable performance.
I agree with that. And have we been misled for the last, like, up until September, let's say? Because if you look at the league, all the teams that we have played from the beginning of September onwards have been teams that are fighting for them playoff spots and are fighting for that, like, home position. So
this is something we pointed out, though.
Yeah.
Is me and you sat here, I don't know, God knows what episode ago, and went through the games and were like, ooh, this is a rough run-in. Yeah. Every single team is in that picture of, like, we can go up and down.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Minnesota losing this game is dreadful. And now our game in hand comes into play. Officially, we can see it on paper.
And just when LA have really started picking up steam, I feel as well. Like they, I feel like they were in a bit of a bad run of form for maybe a few weeks, and then just in the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 games, I really feel like they've swung it around a little bit.
So this is interesting now, because us dropping points to Minnesota, not even dropping, us just full on handing them 3 points. Like, we didn't drop them. They didn't out earn it. Like, we full on rolled up to BC Place and said, hey, do you guys want 3 points? Another, and like, this isn't, it feels so negative saying all this when we're not trying to be negative. We're just kind of calling a spade a spade. And I think every single player on that pitch would look down and be like, that was not a good performance. I did not play well. And I know that's a lot of negative energy to put out there, and negative vibes, whatever you want to call it. But, like, something needs to change. I don't know what, if it's tactics or if this is an internal thing.
For me, going forward, for the last 2 games of the season and going into the playoffs, I think there's a very good case to drop Adekube. My 2 wingers that I'd go with would be Ali Ahmed and Ryan Raposo as my wingbacks. If Stuart Armstrong is fit enough to play, put him in the midfield. Like, just run a midfield, if you've got to, of Cubas, if he can come back into a bit of form, or drop Cubas. Drop Cubas and run a midfield 3 of Stuart Armstrong, Berhalter, and Vite. And then play with just 2 up top in Ryan Gold and Brian White. They had that season where Vanny ran them as a 2 up top, and they were excellent together. And that beefs up the midfield as well. It gives you like a bit more control in the midfield, because you're almost running a 5-man midfield while you're attacking.
Yeah, I think you're right. I was gonna just try and pull this up in the meantime. Okay, so let's look ahead here. So that's your midfield you're going with. Now, the interesting part that I'm trying to pull up quickly is where is Buanga in the Golden Boot?
Oh, I think he was on 18 or 19. I'm not too sure. Like with the
I just want to check this
weekend
before I
that
kind
has
of
just
ramble
gone.
because I know, it's leave it till the MLS stats to stop working. Let me just pull it up here. Because is he going to sit at this game and look at it just kind of salivating and being like, hey, I can kind of put myself into this contention here really easily because of how vulnerable we've been.
Yeah, maybe. Eh?
So let's take a look here at the... Okay, so the Golden Boot. Okay, so this is a little bit interesting. So Buanga is on 19 goals and Christian Benteke is on 23.
Oh wow. Eh?
So 4 goals difference. And we know that he loves to score against us. How many times is he... I mean, this is going to sound... How many times has he kind of equalized or scored in the facing the south side and just really ran with his like hand up to his ear, doing a stupid little backflip? Like,
So I suppose with that though, does Vanny then try and absolutely close him down like we did in that game where we played
yeah,
Halbuni and
I
Laborda?
think this changes how we line up. And now I did see that Halbuni was not fit. That's
Oh,
why he
okay.
wasn't included in the last squad. But I guess we won't even know who's training, who's not training until later this week. But I think you're right, is that it's time to run a back 4, even if that means Utvik and Laborda on one side with Blackman and Veselinovic on the left.
Yeah, I think you're right with that. Yeah.
And then having Raposo out wide with a midfield of... I would do Stuart Armstrong, Cubas, Vite, and then
Oh,
sort out your front.
you can't do that midfield. It's an international weekend.
Oh, fuck. Oh, yeah,
Cuba,
okay.
Vite, Gold,
Okay.
Ali Ahmed, hopefully Adekube.
Okay, so let's look at this then. Okay, fuck. See, this is the frustrating part. Is so the list of people missing is quite long now. So who's gone is Adekube. He gets called up to Canada. Ryan Gauld obviously gets called up to Scotland. Cubas goes to Paraguay, and Vite to Ecuador, and Ahmed as well to Canada. So basically, everything we just said is wrong.
Yeah.
So,
And I don't think he does actually at the moment. I was going to say, does Brian White get called? I don't think Brian White gets called up, right?
no.
Fafa might get called up to Haiti.
Yeah, if they have games scheduled, right?
Yeah. So we might lose a considerable chunk of our first team here.
What do you mean
even
considerable?
with that, though,
Like pretty much half.
right? All you're playing for, realistically, they've got to know that all they're playing for now is the highest position up to 4 because they're not going to get in that top 4. I really don't see it.
No, it's mathematically impossible.
So do they try and play to avoid that playoff, or do you just think, fuck it, we'll take the playoff, protect your big star, your better players now. So basically, for the LA game, just throw on a very almost like a B team just for that game, and say have at it, have at it. Even for the what's the last game though? Who we're playing on the last game?
Salt Lake, who's sitting in fourth.
So even for that game, if we can't go anywhere, you just play the kids from the academy,
Okay, so let me.
and just save your first team, give them a bit of time off, try and let them get their heads back in the game, and yeah, go from there. I don't know.
So let me disagree with you. I think you go all in on the LA game. It is the last game at BC Place till playoffs. Who knows? Might not even be play. We might be away on the playoff game play in. Right?
Yeah.
Portland are 1 point behind us, and now we're kind of looking down the barrel here. So that play in game could essentially be in Portland.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right now it's in Vancouver, which is great, but I mean, that game, that could be away. So knowing that this is the last game in BC Place, it's the fan appreciation match, blah 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 blah. You know, we're gonna have a big crowd. It's 4:30 kickoff on a Sunday. Asterisk though that it also is Thanksgiving and all these internationals are gone, so your marketing power is right away stripped. Right? Like
Yeah.
you can't market, you know, Ryan Gauld, Cubas, Adekube, Ahmed, because they're all going to internationals. So Vanny has to come out with his strongest 11 to try and claw 3 points at home. Because if he can claw these 3 points at home, there's no way Portland catches us, right? It's mathematically impossible for Portland unless somehow Portland pick up 4 points, which maybe they play 2 games and they're like, fuck it, let's go back to back.
No, because Portland have the game in hand though. Are we not playing LA because it being a game in hand?
We're the only team in the MLS with a game in hand.
So we must be the only team on 32 at the moment then with LA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we can beat LA now, then that means that technically for Portland it is out of their reach.
Yeah. So we would mathematically be in front of Portland, depending how decision day settles, hosting the play-in game. How this conversation's changed from me and you saying we're top 4 to now being like, do we host a play-in game?
I know, it's honestly shocking when you think about it. Like from 6-7 weeks ago, sat here. Oh yeah, we're looking at top 4 here. We're one of the better teams in the MLS. Shit, we're just about to scrape it.
Yeah,
and we might have to play in Portland.
We are clinched, obviously, into the playoffs, but it's just mattering of where now. Okay, so if we don't pick up any points against LA, which, given the form, like,
it's a big ask.
Do you really feel confident going into this? Like,
no confidence in this at all. Honestly, it pains me to say it as well because, like you said, a few weeks ago we were talking about finishing in the top 4. If you'd have asked me this question a month ago, I'd have turned around and said, "Oh yeah, I expect us to beat LA." Now,
full on,
I'm expecting us.
God knows what.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a fun game. I don't know how many players LA lose for the international either, though.
I don't think not a lot.
Shit.
And I would love to sit here and be completely wrong. I'd love to sit here and be like on next Monday and, you know, we're bracing for this MLS decision day and being like, well, we were completely wrong. We were completely negative. You know, it sounds like we don't support the club. How do you have a podcast when you don't support the club? It's not the case. I think it's just we're looking at what's happened.
Realism. Like, it's not like, why would we're not going to come on here after the team has played so badly for 2 games and say, hey, yeah, we are going to win the fucking MLS Cup. We are going to do this. We're going to do that. No, like, that's not what the podcast is. Like, we've said it a couple of times that when the club are doing well, we will be the first people to come on here and like sing their praises, as we have done a few times when they've like had absolute like brilliant games. But at the same time, when they are playing like this, where they're looking like they've almost thrown the towel in for the last 2 months,
we have to call it out.
Yeah, we've got to call it out. Like, we can't just sit here and be silent on that. Or
no, we need clickbait.
Not even that. It's just only sharing one side of the story isn't going to work, right? You know, like, we can't come on here and just spread shit about them being the greatest team in the world when
we're not right now. Right now, we are not. I mean, we're looking at, like you said, a couple weeks ago, we were in the MLS power rankings of the top 10, which is crazy to me because it felt like no matter how well we were doing throughout the season, that the MLS was never acknowledging what we were doing.
Yeah.
I feel like the only sort of media that came out was when Stuart Armstrong signed and being like, oh, what are they cooking up there? You know, like what's going on there? But yeah, so like if we pick up no points against LA, which who the hell knows right now? We're going into decision day looking at, do we host a play-in? We're also playing away on decision day, which we're actually a little bit better on the road.
We are a little bit better on the road, but playing Salt Lake, who are also
good
they'll
at
probably
home,
be in a position where if they win, they get that home advantage. If they lose or draw, a team like Colorado might be. I'm not looking at the table here. I'm just like,
yeah. So basically, the top 4 is set. Nobody can get in. Nobody can drop out. So Salt Lake are set in the top 4.
How many points is Salt Lake on?
56.
Okay.
They can. I mean, depending how. I mean, if we hand LA a loss, potentially, positions 2 to 4 could change. Teams up and basically it's LA's to lose. Seattle could drop down. It all depends, right? So what's at stake is 5th place is on 51 points and the Whitecaps are on 47 in 8th place.
Yeah.
So
I see that,
that there's a little bit of jockeying that's going to go on in there. Based on current form, I'm like, we're going to lose both these games. The saving grace that you kind of just said is Salt Lake have clinched the top 4. Do they really field a big team to potentially finish 3rd? You know, move up 1 position.
I think it will all depend that on how we do against LA. I think if we get a win against LAFC here, and then there's a chance that Salt Lake can move up to 2nd if the final day results go the way that they want it to, then I think we might have a game on our hands. If Salt Lake are thinking, okay, well, we're either 3rd or 4th, the only thing that benefits is if you play 5th or 6th, right?
Yeah.
So realistically, it's not going to make that much of a difference because who you're playing. Yeah. Really, you're going to be playing Houston,
Colorado, Minnesota,
let's say,
or Vancouver.
I don't think we're going to get there. I really, really don't. But I know it's still possible, but I think it's losing the Seattle and the Minnesota game, had we got a result in them 2 games, then
we could be on a different conversation.
yeah, we could be literally talking about, who are we going to be playing at home? I don't know. It's a shame that it's come to what it is in the last few weeks.
Yeah, we just kind of watched it unravel. Like, legitimately, it all started middle of September, and I really do think the turning point was the draw away to Houston, where it finished 1-1. And that was kind of the game when you were in England and texted me and said it'd be great if they could string together 3 fucking passes.
Yeah.
I
remember watching that. That was frustrating to watch.
And yeah, it's just ever since then we haven't been in form. I mean, even we've said it too, is even the Canadian Championship game, like, we weren't that good.
No, we have scraped games that we've won. We've scraped by.
What game that we won? That was in penalties. We haven't picked up 3 points since August. Or no, September. We beat San Jose. It was the last game before you went to England.
Still, man, I said this when we actually beat San Jose. I think we did the cast before I went to England about the San Jose game. Yeah, we beat them, but you can't take too much and you can't look into that too much, because at the end of the day, that was the game that mathematically eliminated San Jose from the playoffs. They already knew that they weren't making the playoffs, regardless of what the result of that game was.
So then the last game that we got a result from was against Austin in August. That me and you, I would say, is Austin still eliminated from the playoffs, right? Sitting in 10th. But that was August 31st. That's the last game besides the San Jose game.
See, there's 9 games though. There's still 27 points to pick up. Austin, at that point there, Austin are still fighting to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, that's still realistic for them.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I think that we fell off way too hard. The only hope that I've got now is that once we actually get into the playoffs, the players are saving the best for the playoffs.
Is this a Vanny masterclass? Just when you thought I was dead, let me remind you, who the hell I am.
And honestly, let's say the season finished as it is right now.
Yeah.
So we'd finish 8th. So we would basically play LA Galaxy.
Yeah. In a best of 3 away. Because they would have the home leg, right?
LA have basically got that secured, right? I don't think... Oh, you know what, though? If they lost the last game and LAFC win there too, LAFC could go top. So, either way,
still in LA.
We're going to play one of the LA teams, realistically.
Yeah.
Which, there's a good chance, just because of how things go with the Whitecaps, that it will be somehow LAFC.
You want to know what my ideal scenario would be? My ideal scenario is we pick up 3 points against LAFC. Vanny comes out, masterclass. Laborda completely snaps Buwanga's leg in half, it's a clean tackle. The follow through is questionable. Hugo Lloris is a Spur, so that happens. Giroud has no more pace, so LA, 3-0 game. Is if we could somehow get up into 6th place and play Seattle in a best of 3. I don't know why, but I would fancy our chances against Seattle in a best of 3 in the playoffs.
Yeah, me too, actually. I think that'd be very, very winnable. Honestly, if the right team turn up and put in the right performance, I fancy us against anyone. If the team from, say, prior to September turn up, and put a performance in, I really fancy us against any team. If the team that has been playing from September onwards turns up, I think we will get beat off anybody in the top 8.
Yeah, I think you're right. I was just trying to see historically right now if we had played the Galaxy this season, and we lost 3-1.
That was recent, right?
April.
Was it April? I thought we played them recently. I thought we lost 4-2 recently.
No, yeah, that too. But I was looking if historically in the beginning of the season because I mean, the team that's going to turn up that turned up in that LA game, there's no way we win those games.
Yeah.
So I was just trying to see, like, historically this season, if early in the season we had beaten the Galaxy, but no, we lost to both teams actually early in the season.
Yeah. No, it has. Like when you look at it, really, it's been a rocky season. We I feel like we always end up around the same level of points here, as well. When you look back at the club's history, I'm sure we always end up around that 50
always in this spot.
So yeah, I honestly don't know. I think there's a lot to do still on Vanny's part. I feel to get us to that point where we are competing every year and being in that top 4 teams in the West, I think there's a lot more to do. I think he needs to really whittle down his team, get rid of some of the dead weight, and even at the moment, I know it's like harsh to like say this because it's only been a couple of bad games, but if Kubas has just lost it, for the amount of money that we're paying him and the amount of money he's actually worth, ship him on and look for somebody else. Like, we're at a point where we need to.
And the thing is, like you said, I would love to sit here next week and be like, well, don't listen to that podcast because everything we said was wrong. You know, I would love to sit here next week and be like, Cubas had the best, or he won't even been here, but for decision day, say we go into Salt Lake and can steal 3 points, right? I would love to sit here and say Cubas was absolutely like pivotal in that game in the midfield. Ryan Gauld was,
absolutely.
I mean, I actually won't not bash, but like put out feedback on Ryan Gauld because I think he's dragging this team kicking and screaming at the moment.
Yeah, I will say, I think against Minnesota, though, I think quite a few of the players on the pitch looked almost tired.
Yeah.
Like you say, maybe it's congestion of games, but they did look tired. There were quite a few tired legs, for sure, running around that field.
Yeah, well, you pointed it out saying that Stuart Armstrong actually looked like he was carrying an injury.
Yeah, I think that's why they took him off in the because I think he only lasted till the 60th, right?
Yeah. So, I think we'll end it there, unless you have anything else you kind of want to point out, because at the moment, there's not a lot me and you can say without sitting here and running through hypotheticals, and we won't have a solid opinion on this outlook until next week. There's nothing me and you can say now without going down rabbit holes and being a lot of what ifs. And also we're at the hour mark. So
yeah, and we've already been down them rabbit holes in our own heads for the last
play it
3
out.
days. So yeah, let's just see what plays out on the weekend and go from there.
Yeah. And we'll come back next week. We'll regroup. Hopefully we'll have some fan TV this weekend. It's a little bit more difficult when we lose. A lot of the fans just want to head out and want nothing to do with a camera being shoved in their face. So
understandable. We do
totally understandable.
Like we don't. I mean, if you tell us to get stuff, we don't hold it against you. It's not.
No, we don't get our feelings hurt.
No, we used to be respected.
Sorry?
We're used to being rejected.
It's all too well knowing.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully we'll get some fan TV, even if like people want to jump on with us. I know we're like late in the podcast if people have got to this point, but send us a message. We're always willing to like have you jump on without us going up to groups of people and pulling people out.
absolutely.
Makes it a lot better. But yeah, I guess that's all from us this week. I will come on next week. We'll look at a bit better picture of where we're going to land, and we could really jump into hypotheticals.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. Anything else, or are we logging off here?
No, I think we're good there. Have a nice long weekend, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving.
All right, till next week. Thanks for listening to another episode of Caps Cast presented by Whitecaps Fan TV. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram listed below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content.